You have had your last snack. Ha. Good morning, everybody. So the last video we kind of talked about the 2 words to describe yourself as a gardener, and I wanted to kind of expand on that a little bit. You know, we're waiting on some weather to come through, and I figured it was a very good time to talk about something that is going to change the way you garden once you figure it out. And it just takes time, it takes observation and learning, and once you get it, you're unstoppable in the garden. All right, so this kind of factors into it, but these are our seeds for the fall, and you can see they're all sitting here, and I've got them kind of shaded, and you can see they're leaning towards the sun, so we know that we need to move these. I've got 2 options. I can move them in the house, or I can leave them outside. The risk of leaving them outside is they get really hot and then they basically just go straight to bolt. The risk to taking them inside is it's much more of a pain for me to take care of initially, like just as far as like watering and cleanup and stuff. But then you could almost have the same issue where you take them from your cool house and you bring them out and then you heat them back up and then you could cause them to bolt. So it's a little bit of a, I don't know, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? But then we also have, and this is just about to happen, like today this will start, and this is super important. So we're about to start getting diseases on these tomatoes. They will get diseased at some point, and that's gonna start this week. Now you're probably asking yourself, and you may even said out loud, how the hell does he know that it's gonna get diseases this week? What, do I have some kind of crystal ball? Yeah, I got a crystal ball. It's called history. So what I know is every year between the end of June and the end of July, which is a great swath of time, but this happens every single year where I live, we get a very rainy and humid period of time, okay? And when this humid period of time and this rainy period of time occurs, that's when the exact moment the disease starts to set in on my tomatoes. Every single year, it never ever fails. You can go back into my videos if you care to look, and I'm not going to try and find it, look for it, just look for something around this time of year that was uploaded about tomatoes, and you will see there are diseases on my tomatoes. Every year it happens this way. And that's just because over the years I've realized, like, hey, this is something that occurs. Not only does that happen, but the same time of year, this is what else is going to happen. Watch, and it's already started. We talked about it in the last video, so I won't spend a lot of time, but these squashes are going to get powdery mildew. It's going to happen, and it's going to start this week. And as a matter of fact, for the powdery mildew, it's already started. So that doesn't mean that you have to be a weather expert by any stretch of the imagination. That's not what we're saying here. But knowing your weather patterns are going to make a huge difference. And then you just start simple with your first and last frost dates. Just know those. And when I just saw a squash vine borer moth fly by, son of a bitch. I'm gonna have to go track it down. So once you know your first and last frost date, then you can start cracking the code a little bit, slowly but surely. And then start to learn your weather patterns. Just be observant. That's all you got to do. Especially this year, you can even maybe remember back to last year, you may have had a period, you know, and a lot of times this period that we're coming into is preceded by a dry period. So we haven't had any rain for a couple weeks, and for the past 3 to 4 years, it's been the exact same. No rain, a bunch of rain, a little bit of rain to no rain, back to a bunch of rain. Happens every time. And it's humid. I'm telling you right now, look, watch this. Can you see the piece of pie get cut? I mean, the air is thick right now, so it is humid as all get out. So, I mean, these are the things right now that can help you really unlock the code to your garden and just start being super powerful as a gardener. I mean, for us, it's kind of, it's almost like it's an uphill battle until you start to get it. I mean, one thing is there is a lot of tools at your disposal for this. I mean, first of all, weather apps are great if you get the right one. And I can't really recommend one for anybody because every area is different. And I would say like your local weather resources are the best, but what I think people need to realize is you can't just look at a weather app each day and say it's going to be good, it's going to be bad. Look forward. You know, we're about to get a lot of rain, and so in just a second I'm going to show you how knowing this has benefited me right now, and it's made my life a lot easier. So when you see that there's high chances of rain, periodic rain coming through, especially like daily rain, instead of just like boom, like a crazy thunderstorm with like massive downpour of rain, that doesn't really help much. But as far as this goes, when you come into it and you're looking around and you're starting to see these areas in your garden that could potentially be problems, then we can start thinking about how are we going to fix those problems and what's it going to take. And a lot of times in the summertime, like in my area in zone 8A in North Carolina, rain can make a big difference. All right, so first and foremost is going to be this plant right here. We planted it, it was struggling. I'm just convinced that the roots aren't big enough yet to get water from the hoses that it's in between, but the rain is going to help with that. It's going to give it a couple days to really get comfortable. That's the first thing in my garden right now that I'm using this knowledge of the weather pattern coming up to really solve for me. Okay, so here's another one. So we come over here to the squash bed. So this one's a little bit tricky. I'm not sure totally what's going on, but this plant is definitely exhibiting signs of having the squash vine borer inside of it. And if it's having an issue with the squash vine borer, then I need to pull it up, but I'm not 100% convinced yet. I'm only about 75% convinced. So what does that matter? Well, I can come out and put a new seed in the ground. You know, I'm gonna come out, I'm gonna put a seed in the ground there, let it get watered by nature for 3 to 4 days, and it'll start growing. You know, same with these winter pumpkins over here that I've been talking about got stunted. Same thing. We are not really seeing any growth on here whatsoever, and it actually looks like it's budding at this point. So we're gonna come out here and do the same thing and plant the seeds right in its spot. Maybe right next to it so we can see what happens, but we're gonna go ahead and get them in the ground and get them growing. That's another thing that this knowledge can help you with. And I mean, if we come over here and let's not even talk about planting anything, let's just talk about something that's growing. So this over here is going to require a lot of water soon. And this is the corn. So the corn is going to require a lot of water. It's starting to form its ears, and we are going to need to give it a lot of water. Now that being said, I have designed my beds appropriately to where I can turn off all the water to all 3 of these beds and only water this bed as needed, because I'll need to at least double to triple the amount of water in order to fill out those ears of corn. But because there's a lot of rain coming, I know that this is going to get that extra water. And so that's going to help me plant it. You know, otherwise, I would say we're going to get a lot of rain this week, and then it looks as of right now, we're not going to get as much rain. So what we're probably going to end up doing is watering this bed like overnight as the ears start to grow and let them fill with water and really get a good watering. But we don't have to water the rest of it. So that's a good thing. Not to mention, we also know that the temperatures are going to start to drop, and we're not going to be as hot, where we've been like upwards of 90. And I think the plant leaf temperature, I was out the other day and I estimated is around 100 degrees on the leaf. So when we go forward, now we know something different. Go full circle, we know that in the cloudy days upcoming, it's going to be around 81 degrees as a high. So for these seedlings, this should be pretty good. Not to mention they're going to be consistently getting watered, and we don't, even though we're probably going to move some of these in, we don't feel the need that we're going to have to baby all of them. And really what we're doing is we're just prolonging the inevitable of moving these things into another area or inside at all. So the Brussels sprouts are going to stay outside. They're going to actually, what I'm going to do here in just a minute is I'm going to come set the trays in the bed. They're going to be planted. Just let them do their thing. Hopefully in about a week or 2, I'm gonna push them some fertilizer this week, and then hopefully they can get up and going, and we can stick these bad boys in the ground, get them going. So we're gonna get them used to the sun here and just get them going and let them go. So for the cabbage and broccoli, after this system moves through, we're gonna take those and we're gonna put them inside, let them finish up until they're ready to come outside. And I think that's gonna be the best method for that, because the small seed cells that they're in can be hard to water. And remember what I said, after this period, if history repeats itself, which it's all cyclical, everything is cyclical, it will come back and it will be dry again, and it's going to get hot. Mark my words, in this area, it will get hot. So you can do this for your area too. You can just keep an eye out and you'll start to see these patterns over time. So this rain's coming. We're gonna leave these out, let them get a good rain. Everything is rooted here. The lavender, not so sure about. Actually, looks like it is starting to root. So we'll be able to move those out and then start the hardening off process. And when I say hardening off, I mean from basically full shade into sun, and start those growing again. Now, some of these obviously clearly didn't make it, so we can remove those, but everything else, you know, if it's still green at this point, more than likely it's got a root. So we can take care of those as needed. This propagation here, so you can see we're propagating this lantana. And you can see we have roots, but it's starting to get low on water, but we know we don't need to worry about it. Planting all these things out just really reminds me of back in the day when people were growing food and they just basically let it all come down from the sun. I mean, or from the sky. It basically, you know, they knew the cycles of it because they didn't have everything else flooding their mind. They didn't have Netflix and Hulu and video games, and you know, they weren't going out and going, well, I guess people don't go to the malls anymore. There's not really many, but you know what I mean. They weren't shopping all the time and doing all this stuff. This is what they focused on, and they followed the trends and the patterns of the weather. There's a reason why they call it a weather pattern. Remember that. So get to know these cycles in your area. Don't focus on my area, unless you live down the street from me, then by all means, but focus on your area, and you'll be able to see the difference in all of these patterns that are going around. And you'll be able to follow it, follow the cycles, and a couple things will happen. One, you'll know when to plant better. Two, you'll know when to start seeds better. And three, you're gonna know what to expect. There's a reason why I'm not stressing about tomatoes getting diseases, because I know how to handle it, because I know to expect it and I know it's gonna come. And when that happens, I know how to treat for diseases.